I need a little breathing room when I'm feeling crowded in the city. Need a little green and blue when I'm feeling tired and gray. Oh, I need that sweet perfume when I'm feeling maddened by the city. A place of deep refuge from the loneliness of my days. A place for the tired and worn to come and rest by the water. A place for the spirit that's torn by the weariness of life. A place for the old to be reborn, to come and rest by the water beneath the hemlock and the hawthorn, free from stress and strife.
Okay, James, I screwed this up. I put it on not Facebook, so I put it on YouTube. So I'll be right back with the real deal. Oh, but you're gonna have to check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? You're gonna have to check your email for a new link. I'm sorry I screwed it up, and we shall be in again shortly.
All right.
Okay, wait, James, wait. Maybe I can edit. Maybe I can add another. Yes, I can. I can just add another one. Okay, never mind. Schedule for later. No, just save changes. Okay, never mind. I think you can probably. Everyone else, only one person is watching. What wonderful, lucky person is watching on YouTube?
Who is that?
I don't know.
Watching on YouTube?
Okay, but anyway, now we're going to start for real. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
I need a little breathing room when I'm feeling crowded in the city. Need a little green and blue when I'm feeling tired and gray. Oh, I need that sweet perfume when I'm feeling maddened by the city. A place of deep refuge from the loneliness of my days. A place for the tired and worn to come and rest by the water. A place for the spirit that's torn by the weariness of life. A place for the old to be reborn, to come and rest by the water beneath the hemlock and the hawthorn, free from stress and strife. So we'll make a little breathing room for those who are crowded in the city. Leave a little green blue for those who are tired and gray. Just a little sweet perfume for those who are maddened by the city. A place of deep refuge, a place of deep refuge, a place of deep refuge from the lonely
Hello, everybody. Time for the theme song.
Katie.
Katie.
Katie Dahl.
Katie Dahl.
Katie Dahl has friends.
Ooh, she has friends.
Yes, she does. She's got a friend in me.
And she's got a friend in you.
You know that, Katie.
Katie.
Katie Dahl.
Katie Dahl.
Katie Dahl has friends.
Katie Dahl has friends.
Yeah.
Yay! Here we are. If you caught us at the very top, not knowing what in the heck was going on, you're lucky. You don't usually get to see. I usually so smooth and polished, but it was an exciting moment tonight. Here we are, and here you are, which is so awesome. This is my show called Katie Dahl Has Friends, where we have a snack, we have some singing, we have some talking, and we have a special guest. And tonight the special guest is James Valcq. And if you are a huge fan of James Valcq, me too, same. So thank you for being here. He'll be on in a second. We're going to talk about writing music, mostly for plays, for musicals. And so I'm going to do a song before James comes on from a musical that I'm writing. I'm writing the music and the book and lyrics too. And it's about the creation of Peninsula State Park in 1908, and two sisters whose relationship is sort of forced. They have to reckon with their relationship because the park is attempting to seize their land for the state. So, hello, Bagley. While I'm playing, everyone, if you would like to tell us where you're coming from and who you are, we'd love to see that in the comments. And if you'd like to click love or like or hug or anything on the Facebook page, that would be super helpful to get everyone to know about this. And if you wanted to click share, that would be the most altruistic thing you could do all night besides tip, which is also good. So, okay, here we go. It's freer, though, to just click share. Here's a song that the older sister of these two sisters sings to the younger sister who's been gone for a while. It's called The Fisherman's Daughter. Fisherman's daughter, I know waves and wind. I know salt and barrels and tin. I know the ways of the water. I know blades and twine. I always was his rock of Gibraltar, and he was mine. I know the fisherman's story, a boat across the sea. Cut a clearing, built a cabin, planted an apple tree. He learned to fish from Doc and from Dory, took a wife at 33. City, the very same day that we laid him in the ground. When I was the fisherman's daughter, I knew how the days would end.
if I should leave. Light in the window for you anymore.
Woo! All right. So everybody, I see people are here from California, Bailey's Harbor, Texas, another California, Northern California and Southern. And that's so nice of you, Elizabeth Powell. And now I'm going to introduce my esteemed colleague, my guest tonight. I got distracted because thanks, Pat Eggers, and hi, Mom. Now I will stop looking at the comments and I will say my esteemed colleague and guest, James Valcq. Hello.
Hi. Oh, man. Well, we promised a lot of laughs on this show, and I'm already crying. Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
Other than just the sheer loveliness of that song and hearing you sing it, I feel in a tiny, tiny way responsible for its existence. And Katie, you'll know why, and I'll try to tell quickly out there in TV land what the heck I'm talking about. So it was at least 10 years ago when we were both at Door Shakespeare, and Katie told me about this musical she was writing. It was called Cherryland USA at that point. And she asked me if I would write the score. Well, I knew Katie as a singer-songwriter of wonderful songs. And I said, Katie, I would love to hear a Katie Dahl score for the theater. And she said, well, I think I would too, but I know I'm not ready to do that yet. Well, I tried to give a lot of encouragement that she would do it, but she didn't do it. And I collaborated with her, and thank God I did. That was just the best thing that could have happened for us, and selfishly for me in my non-existent writing life at that point, to actually complete a project like that I thought was so beautiful. Anyway, blah,
And with
blah,
Emily
blah.
Coulson, it should be said.
With Emily Coulson, and I think Emily's here. Hi, Emily.
I think she is.
I
Hi,
still
Emily.
don't know who wrote what, but I love it all. Oh, good. Costa Mesa. That means flat coast or something, doesn't it?
Well, that would make sense to me. Mesa would be like a flat, and Costa would be like a coast.
Like a coast with an Hi, Emily. Okay, so flash forward, and Katie had this idea for a show about the fisherman's daughter and asked me to write the score. And I said, I'd still like to hear a Katie Dahl score for the theater, but I loved working with you. So yeah, absolutely, I'll do it. And she said, okay, I'll get back to you in a couple weeks. And when she got back to me in a couple weeks, she said, you know what, James? I think you were right all along, and I think I want to write this myself. Are you mad? And I said, no, I'm thrilled. I'm disappointed that I won't be able to work with you again on this. But I was so thrilled and could offer nothing but encouragement and my blessing and my love. And I think it's just beautiful.
Well, thank you. And I mean, totally, that belief means so much to me, because so the way folks out there, and as James said, TV land, the way that I knew of James since I was 11 years old, when his show, The Passage, which he co-wrote with Fred Alley, came to live on the then American Folklore Theater stage in 1994. And I loved it. I loved it so much. And I listened and wore out that cassette tape. And then, so the Spitfire Grill, to me, which is probably your most famous, piece, was like second in my mind in terms of my chronology to The Passage. Like, I learned The Passage first, and you wrote them both with Fred Alley. And the Spitfire Grill was just amazing. And I grew up listening. That came out in 2002, 2001, depending on how you count it. And
2001.
so I was 18. So I didn't really grow up with that music in the way that I did with The Passage, which came out when I was 11. But they both were really formative to my thinking. So imagine my excitement when I learned that James and I would both be cast in Doris Shakespeare's summer season of 2010. And imagine then my even greater excitement and delight to discover that I liked him so much. That was a very exciting twist in the whole story. You weren't just
we were
like
simpatico right off the bat, as
Yeah.
I recall it.
Yes.
That we delighted one another immediately, and sometimes enervated one another. More me enervating you than vice versa.
Well, Leslie Handelman, who was our co-castmate that year, just posted on Instagram. She said, "I can't believe you just met that summer because I thought you had known each other for so long." And I said, "Well, yes, that was a reasonable thing to think, Leslie." But James, you tell him. I would be interested to know how you is the first full show that you wrote for the theater, Zombies from the Beyond.
Sort of, not really. I had written a couple. It's the first book show I wrote. I had written a couple of reviews before then. One was a kind of bawdy burlesque review called Beertown Burlesque. And the other one was called Holiday Punch. And it was a sort of irreverent holiday show that we did as in Milwaukee in the 80s as sort of an antidote to A Christmas Carol and the Nutcracker and the pervasive Gilbert and Sullivan that would happen every Christmas in Milwaukee in those days. So we did this kind of very irreverent review, and it's sort of been done in some way, shape, or form almost every year since then, and that was so long ago.
Really? Is it still done in Milwaukee?
Well, probably not now with that we're in the pandemic times, but I think before that, there's probably a couple of years where it wasn't done, but it did kind of keep going, and with different things cycling in and out. But the old material would come back.
Yeah. So how old were you when you wrote those?
I was in college.
Uh-huh. And did you what was your major in college?
I started out as an applied voice major, studying opera and lieder and classical singing, and after that was in Madison. And after 2 years, I switched to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee had this option where you could it wasn't really a double major, but you could do a sort of a split major, and I could major in both music and theater and still get a BFA, which is what I wanted to get. So that's what I did, because I really wanted to get a lot of theater classes. Now, you were going to ask me about when I really started composing, and what I want to say is that, it all comes out of music for me. That was the first thing that really got me started. When I was 5, I auditioned for The King and I at my sister Susan's high school. Sue is here. Hi, Sue. And I didn't get in. I was tone deaf. And the nun who taught music at Holy Angels Academy, Sister Frances Dolan, could see how heartbroken I was, and also knew that Sue was incredibly talented musically, a gorgeous, one-of-a-kind soprano voice, and that her little brother has to have some talent somewhere. So she took me under her wing and taught me how to hear music, how to hear pitches, how to sing and match the pitch, and how to play the piano, and how to read music. And the next year they did Brigadoon, and there's no kids in that show, but she cast me as a little Towns kid. So I got to be in that show. And less than a year after that, at the ripe old age of 7, I was in my first professional show, which was the Alban Berg opera Valcq, which had no beautiful music in it. It was hard to listen to and very, very hard to sing. But sing it I did. I didn't know any better. The ads said sadism, adultery, man's inhumanity to man. These were the taglines to get people to come see this show. But the point of this is that I was very young, exposed to a wide variety of music. Then I see Nancy Ruggieri is on this program too. She's an old friend of mine who I just saw again last week in Sturgeon Bay, go figure. I auditioned for and got into the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music Children's Choir, which I think they had basically formed as a children's choir for the Milwaukee Symphony. They were doing Benjamin Britten's War Requiem, which needed a children's choir, and Milwaukee didn't have one. So they formed it, and I went in and auditioned for that. And, you know, I was like, what shall I sing? The Lonely Goat Herd? And should I mostly belt it, or should I, you know, really yodel up into my high range? Well, I didn't have to worry about that because they just had me sing My Country 'Tis of Thee, and they kept going higher and higher and higher until it was like above the staff, and then it was like a high C, and I was still singing it. And then the auditioner, Scott Stewart, the conductor, said, wait a minute, are you related to Sue Valcq? And I said, yes, she's my sister. And he's like, it had to be. Nobody sounds like that and can sing words on a high C, you know, and it didn't faze me. It was easy. I think I subconsciously imitated my sister, but luckily that was where my voice seemed to naturally lay. Anyway, the point of this is another wonderful teacher and another wonderful happenstance at the conservatory. My best buddy in the choir, besides Nancy, of course, who's on the call, was Jane Kramer, whose mother happened to be the dean of the conservatory. And one day during a break at choir, Jane and I were singing, I don't know what, By the Light of the Silvery Moon or something. And I was playing the piano, and Jane said, oh, that's too high for me. Put it in my key. So, okay. So I started playing it in a different key. And her mother was like, who is your piano teacher? And I said, well, I don't have one. I hadn't had one for years. At age 11, I hadn't had one for years. And she said, where do you study music theory? And, you know, nobody. So she put me on a full scholarship. She didn't teach me piano, but she set me up with a wonderful piano teacher. I studied ear training, sight singing, harmony, and music theory, you know, all when I was 11. And these are like the classes you get 101 when you're a freshman in college. And I was getting them at age 11 and really soaking it in. So I never studied composition, Katie, but I studied music and felt I could apply it wherever I wanted to. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Note, did I ever tell you about when I auditioned for the school musical and I asked the accompanist to modulate up a step, or no, excuse me, I asked the accompanist to ovulate up a step at the third verse.
No.
Yeah.
And what was the result of this request?
Well, she ovulated up a step.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What was the song?
Amazing Grace.
And you went up. Good for you.
Thank you. That's not usually like me, but my mom suggested I do it for, you know, pizzazz or something. Thanks,
Mom. Good choice.
Yeah. So, let's see, James, you're echoing a little, but you must still have the headphones.
I am on the headphones.
Yeah.
Is it really bad?
Well, now it's better. I don't know what that made that better. That's very funny. Melissa Allen says at least she was female. Very true. Okay, so by this point you are like, when you get to college, then you have learned so much already. So like, were those music classes then in college, did they feel you already knew of everything?
Totally. They weren't boring because Jeff Herbst was in them. We were like best friends in college. And a couple gals, Wendy and Verge. And we were sort of a quartet and sort of a holy terror, however you want to look at it. So we had a lot of fun. But yes, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to switch to Milwaukee, because I really felt I already know all this stuff. And there was a wonderful choir conducted by Robert Fountain, who's, one of the best choral conductors. And people are like, aren't you just thrilled to be singing under Robert Fountain? And I was like, I've sung under Margaret Hawkins and Kenneth Schermerhorn and Scott Stewart. I've sung under really brilliant conductors. So it's not that the thrill was gone, but it was not new. And I didn't feel I was learning anything. And I was on a scholarship and I really wanted to learn something. If I could talk to my younger self, I'd say study history, study Romance languages, study psychology and political science. But, I would have none of that then. I really kind of wanted some kind of conservatory training. And they didn't have musical theater programs then. I don't think I really wanted to be an opera singer. I mean, I sort of did, but I knew I really didn't have that kind of a voice. And now I don't have any kind of a voice, so it's a good thing. But the point is that if I was in a conservatory-like musical theater program where, there was tap, jazz, ballet, and, making faces and belting, then maybe that would have been okay and something new to actually learn in a regimented fashion. But they didn't have those then in the 80s. So I thought, trying to do this theater concentration thing would be the best move for me. And that was stuff, I had been on stage and acting in professional and equity productions since I was very small. But the workings of the theater, I had a lot to learn. So that was a good move.
So at that point, like, when did you start to envision your role, your place in the theater as a writer? I mean, I know you have a lot of roles still to this day in the theater, but when did you start to think about yourself as a writer, or what made you think that?
Zombies from the Beyond was kind of a turning point, but it was such a genre specific thing. It was a sort of social satire on Cold War culture and set in the framework of obviously of a 50s science fiction movie, a flying saucer invasion. And it's very cute and clever and fun. And a friend of mine read the script and said, I feel like I'm sitting in a room with 7 James Valcqs talking to each other. So I guess the dialogue was a reflection of my true voice, but the music wasn't. It was deliberately an imitation of the kind of songs that Perry Como and Doris Day would sing on the radio, or that would be in a 50s musical comedy at that time, say the Pajama Game or something of that ilk. So, it was a deliberate imitation. It wasn't long after that I was asked to write, and you never know where an inspiration is going to strike. I was asked to write an adaptation of a children's book commissioned by a theater in Milwaukee, a children's book called The Pancake King. And they also got the author of the original book, Phyllis Lafarge, to write the libretto, and we kind of collaborated on the lyrics. She wrote most of them, and I helped with a few. And it was very freeing, especially thinking through the eyes of a child, and that the events that happened in this story, that might be mildly off-putting or bemusing to an adult, would really be huge to a child. And that seemed to ask me to write bigger music, and music that actually spoke to the situation and wasn't just, this is the uptune, this is the ballad. So I was glad that happened. I kind of started to really find my voice with that. And then part of the decision was sort of made for me. Leonard Bernstein's collaborator, I don't drop names, but you need to know who people are. And I've been like a fly on the wall with some really wonderful people. And it's had an effect on how I work. Anyway, Bernstein's last collaborator, Stephen Wadsworth, was one of the co-artistic directors of the Skylight at that time. And he said, there's this program at New York University in New York, and they keep asking me to recommend some writers for it. And he said, I never, think of any that should do it, but you should do it. So with, Bernstein's collaborator's recommendation, I applied and sent them a bunch of stuff from Zombies from the Beyond, and they were like, I don't think so. So, you know, I should have figured they couldn't take a joke. But the program ran every 2 years. It didn't take people in, you know, other than when they were starting a new cycle. So I had to wait for the next cycle. And then I sent them all kinds of other stuff. I had written a few art songs for people's voice recitals at UWM. So I sent that stuff, and I sent stuff from that children's show that if they, you know, if they didn't know what the lyrics were, you really wouldn't know it was a children's show. And eventually, from that, I did get in. And then I was a composer. I left my tap shoes in Milwaukee, and for years, almost until that Door Shakespeare year, never thought of being a chorus boy again. And just thought of
until
being
the Shakespeare chorus boy called.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
But I thought that Zombies from the Beyond was produced in New York, but was that after you went to the program?
It was after I went to the program.
I see.
Yes, it was produced in Milwaukee in the mid 80s. And then in 1995, we did it in New York. And it still wasn't, you know, reflective of my voice, but I was kind of getting into this weird experimental phase. And I wrote a show for my thesis project called Fallout Follies, which was again in the 50s, but it was about the just the ridiculous falsehoods, is that what we call them now, that the government spun about, you know, how safe it was not just to have nuclear power, but to have all those tests that they were doing in the desert in Nevada in those days. And anyway, so some really weird stuff. And I thought, well, I need to make a splash. And I, through my, my well-known powers of persuasion, convinced a producer to, Colin Cabot from Milwaukee, to produce Zombies off Broadway. He had produced it in Milwaukee in the 80s. And, you know, thought, I'll go in with something really commercial. It'll be this big hit. And then people will just want to know whatever I write. Well, it wasn't a big hit. It got amazing reviews. It really did. Like we wrote them ourselves. They were Valentine's. Seriously, they were just great. There were a couple clinkers, but, you know, the New York Times and Clive Barnes and the New York Post loved it and kept writing about it, and Howard Kissel. Anywho, there's a lot of reasons why it didn't run. Location was a big one. It was in a very hard to find theater in the Village. And Julie Andrews, Carol Burnett, and Carol Channing all opened in 3 different shows, like around the same time that we did. And nobody was looking at, you know, some little off-Broadway flying saucer musical. You know, there wasn't any room for us in print. So we kind of got lost. I
frankly would have gone to the Julie Andrews musical if not knowing you. I mean, now I would choose Zombies from the Beyond, but as an uninitiated person, you know how I love Julie.
Oh, I would have gone to that too, but you know, I was busy, you know, checking up on my show at the theater every night.
Yeah.
You know, how many people are in the audience?
So was like Fred, when you worked with Fred Alley on The Passage, was that during your time at that program, or no? I don't know. When were you at NYU?
I 89, 90. I finished in 91.
Okay.
So we started shortly after that, and I had known Fred since high school. I met Fred and Jeff when I was at music camp. Yeah. And I always have to say, Fred was not. Jeff and I were at the camp. Fred was not. He was too much of a renegade even then, but you know, he was around, as Fred was wont to be, and and I met him, and we became very good friends too. And Jeff was sort of the matchmaker for this one, you know, and said, "You guys are old friends, and you have a lot of, you know, you connect on a lot of levels, and I think you two should write something together." And then lo and behold, they were all, Fred, Jeff, and Doc were in New York. And they said, "We're going to Ellis Island." The museum there had just opened that year, and I hadn't been yet. And I said, "I've been wanting to see that." And are you guys thinking about an Ellis Island musical for AFT, now Northern Sky? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, I'll meet you at the dock tomorrow, and don't leave without me. Well, I was late, and they left without me. But I was like minute late, and they could hear me yelling from, they're on the dock, they're waving like, bye. And I said, wait there, don't go in the museum. I'll be on the next ferry. Oh, goodness. And they did wait. And we went through the museum together and found it very moving. And, the wheels were turning right then about, inspiration for songs. And yeah, that's that.
And was Fred then the first collaborator that you worked with multiple times?
Yeah, nobody else would have me more than once. Just kidding. No, I did have a couple of repeat offenders, but Fred was the one that I wanted to keep working with. We really felt in some ways that we were creative soulmates, and immediately after the passage started looking for something else that we could collaborate on. And it took a while.
Which it was
to find the right thing, which ended up being Spitfire Grill. Yeah,
Spitfire Grill. So, team, we have some footage from Spitfire Grill and from Victory Farm. We're going to take a little pause to mention that our snack tonight is red wine. We are both sharing some red wine. We had a big discussion before the show about whether James's wine should be in a opaque or a transparent glass, and I see he chose transparent. I chose opaque, and that reflects my general opacity of interaction. I never tell anyone.
And I have a glass head.
Easily broken. If you would like to tip tonight, you are more than welcome. Here is the information about how you can do so. And 10% of proceeds tonight go to Third Avenue Playhouse. Do you want to tell us anything about Third Avenue Playhouse, James?
I absolutely do. It's a nonprofit theater here in Door County in Sturgeon Bay, a professional theater that I and my husband, Bob Bowles, are the co-artistic directors of. And I ordinarily would not put us down as the charity. I really wouldn't. But everybody's hurting from this pandemic. And we have somewhat, I don't want to say foolishly, but bravely decided to do a renovation that was planned for the near future, but not for now. We decided to do it during the pandemic while we're closed, because the time when we would have done it, we don't know when we're going to be back, but we figured, we'd come back and do 2 shows and then say, got to go and fix up our theater. So we're doing it now, and people have been very generous, but every little bit helps. So I asked Katie if she thought it'd be okay if I put the 10% to that, and she said sure. So, like I said, I wouldn't ordinarily pick my own nonprofit as a charity, but in this case, why not?
Why not? Indeed, I agree. And while we're on the advertising, this show happens every Tuesday night, right in this spot, and this is the month of J's. So this is the beginning of J month, James.
A theme.
It's a theme. Next week is Jonathan Bird. He's a stellar singer-songwriter from North Carolina. He's going to talk about photography, which is his latest passion. The 20th, my friend Juliet Menendez, who is my college roommate, has recently published a book called Latinitas about amazing Latina women. She's an amazing painter, and now she's put her paintings in this children's book. Very cool. And on the 30th, 27th, I got all the dates wrong. Anyway, 27th, my friend Jordan, who reminds me a lot of James, in fact, who works at Walt Disney Studios, is going to talk to us about the Oscars. And we're going to chat because it will be right after the Oscars have happened. And then on May 4th, Jope Dunbar otherwise known as Hope Dunbar. We had to keep the J theme going. She's my dear friend, and we're going to have a closing night party. That's going to be the end of the show until we're going to go on hiatus, and we'll be back sometime. But okay, end of advertisement.
To borrow a Katie Dahl line, I'll versionize it for my own purposes. Your friend Jordan is the younger, cuter, and now thinner version of me.
Yes. He is all those things. So like, I would love to know a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of your writing process, because I mean, and I don't want to know too much, like in the way that like, I think that there's sort of a magic to me as a person who normally is tasked with writing the music to my own lyrics. There is an amazing like vulnerability in giving those away to a composer, like handing them over to a composer, and also like such a gift, like, this thing I didn't write the whole thing. Like, I didn't have to. I just had to write the lyric, and then that you sent me. I've only worked with you as a composer. You sent me back songs, like fully formed, beautiful songs that I had no idea could exist from those lyrics. So I don't want to. It's a magic, and I don't want to know too much, but I do want to know some things, and I wondered, and we have a few examples. Thank you very much to Northern Sky Theater for letting us borrow some archival footage, and thank you to Molly Rohde for helping us put it together.
Thanks, Molly.
Yep. And do you think we should start with Victory Farm or with Spitfire?
Let's start with Spitfire. That came first.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, here's what I want to tell you about the composing process. It is sort of magical, and I can't tell you too much in too many details. I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I was trying to think of a way to describe it, and I don't think I've ever used quite this metaphor before, but for me, it feels sort of like speaking a language. Like, I talked about those classes that I had. I understand Bach's voice leading. I understand Mozart's structure, of sonata allegro form, because all these things were taught to me, and I got them. So I'm fluent, and I don't have to think. It's like when we're talking to each other, we don't have to think about, well, we do. We think about how convoluted we can make a sentence so that we can delight one another with our cleverness. But when ordinary people are talking in ordinary ways, like people, you don't think of how you're structuring the sentence or what the diagram of it would look like. You just do it because it comes out. So I don't know that all composers work that way, and I think some get very analytical before they even put anything on paper. For me, it's much more visceral, and it's a direct reaction to the words. And Fred was the first best writing partner I ever had. Is that politic enough? Because there's been some wonderful things that have happened since then. But by first best, that was the first time that he'd hand me the lyric, and I've told this many times, that I put the lyric on the music rack of the piano, and the song basically would write itself. It was like I was sitting at a player piano, and the song just came out. And it's not that there wasn't a forethought put into it. And, Fred and I would have talked about the characters endlessly, and we know where it fits in the show, and I know whether it's going to be a ballad or an up-tempo or both, or, there's certain givens about how it's going to go. So it's not completely out of the blue. It's very informed, but in the same way that speaking is informed. You have a vocabulary, and you draw on it to say what you want to say. And the words kind of tell me what to say.
Do you ever not know how to play or write what you have in your head? Like, do you ever need to like go to an example song and figure out what that structure is, or do you pretty much always what you think of you can
No,
execute?
I'm disgusting that way. I can hear music at pitch. I'd say this not to brag. It's actually kind of awful. It's almost, it's not a curse, but imagine having music in your head all day. You can hear it. You can hear the oboe line in the middle of the orchestration. And I can read that on the page, like reading a book. So no, my ability to, formalize and paperize what's in my head is pretty facile. I understand that it isn't that way for a lot of really good composers. And they do have to kind of fiddle around until they find it. And it's not that everything comes out 100% right at the beginning. I do my share of fiddling too, but if the basic idea comes out, I can kind of futz. It's so technical.
It's very technical. And you write, you don't need to like play it and then write it, right? Like you can write it from your brain without playing it.
I can, and sometimes I do. I usually end up playing it, which isn't the best thing because I'm not the greatest pianist. I'm fine. I'm pretty good, but I have my limitations, and like anybody, certain places where my hands just tend to go. And then I'm always doing too much thinking. Sondheim says he'll write something in a different key so that his hands do go to different places. But I'm like, well, she's not going to sing it in that key. It's right in her passaggio. It needs to be in this key, and that's going to be the high note. So it has to be here. And it's like too much. Why couldn't I just put it in the other key and then change it? But I don't. So what are you going to do?
What does passaggio mean?
It's where your
break.
It's a little break.
Lonely
That's the
Goatherd
nice
style.
Italian. Yeah, that's the nice Italian word for the break.
Yeah. Well, and do you sing it too? I mean,
God, no.
Yes, we always got just for the outer world. Emily and I, when we were writing with James, we got MIDI files. So files of different instruments would play the different melody lines of the different characters, and each character had its own assigned instrument, synthetic instrument to play the melody line. So I remember Dottie was the oboe. Which I appreciated as a former oboist. I always like to hear Dottie be the oboe, and but never. I always expected to. When we first started working together, I thought like, oh, you will sing demos, but that's not what you did. You created them. Yeah.
I didn't. I actually did eventually write one song, not for me, but I don't know how or why, but I actually could sing it. And I've sung it on many occasions. I don't think I've really sung it since Jeff Herbst sang it in the show. And Jeff's voice is so beautiful. I was like, it was fine for me for a while, but I think I'm not going to sing it anymore. But I could sing that one song, but otherwise, not so much.
From what, Boxcar?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the lullaby song. I used to sing that.
I love that song. Wow. Really? That seems like, of all the ones, that seems a very challenging song to sing. No?
Yeah, I don't know why I could sing it.
Da, da, da. There's that very high.
Oh, well, I
part.
can float a head tone, I can float a head tone like nobody's business. But Jeff and I didn't sing it in the same key. I had to take it up for him, which was fine. Oh, it sounded so beautiful when he sang it. Anyway, where were we?
Anyway, so so Spitfire. So what we have footage of is Shine, which is sort of like the climactic moment of the show, right? Like, and so tell us a little bit about what, for anyone who's not familiar with the show, tell us about it.
A character who's had a really rough life and probably justifiably feels she might be irredeemable, even though she's totally wonderful, is taken by her best stranger friend, somebody who she's never spoken to, somebody who's mute, and who she's just, had the barest communication with, but another broken soul. And he takes her to a mountaintop to see this sunrise on an autumn morning. And some years here in Door County, Fred assured me, and I have seen it come true. I was dubious at the time. But he said sometimes the leaves just turn overnight, depending on how the weather is and how the frosts go. That, you know, I mean, it's maybe 2.5 days or something, but it's quite startling and quite breathtaking. And it's not gradual, that there's a few yellow leaves here and there, but suddenly it's a blaze. And that was what he was trying to capture in this lyric that he wrote for a song called Shine. Am I to tell the story about writing it now?
I think you should tell after.
Okay.
Should we watch the English version first?
No, let's go in order.
Okay.
Even though it's not chronological order at all. But Spitfire Grill has been done like almost 800 times, literally all around the world, everywhere except South America, I think.
Every
And
continent except South America.
Every
Yeah.
continent except South America. Thank you. Is Russia a continent? No, that's in Asia. And it's been done lots in Asia. And this is a random video I found of a young woman singing Shine in Korean. And just play it.
Okay.
I can't even. Just play.
햇살이 내리네 천국이 내린 걸까 세상 모든 빛깔들 불타네 내 안의 어둠 계곡처럼 깊고 내 지난 날들 밤처럼 어두워 내 지은 죄는 셀 수 없이 많아서 강물이 흘러도 씻겨지지 않네
I hate that we don't get to watch the whole thing of that.
Oh, it's so lovely. She's
So
just
beautiful.
so pure and so lovely. No, Bob, it was never done in Antarctica. I don't think they have theaters there. Yes, Susan, Koreans do have some of the most beautiful voices in the world, and it's just so fascinating. The first language it was translated into was German, and I'm hardly fluent, but I can understand it pretty well. I studied it for a long time, and the German is such a formal, weird language, and the translation really captured the informality of Fred's writing, which is one of its hallmarks, just the simplicity and the not convoluted syntax of it. And it was just a beautiful translation. And the German word for shine is Schein, S-C-H-E-I-N. So that sang beautifully. And the girl who sang it, the woman who sang it, Vasilena, we're still friends on Facebook, and she knocked it out of the park, really. It was gorgeous. But I can't pick a favorite rendition of this. I know we're going to bring the song home by playing the end of it, sung by Annalise McCoy, who did Percy for us at Northern Sky. Was it AFT still then? I think it was.
I think it was.
And it was the 10th anniversary of the show. And I was fortunate enough to be asked by my old pal Jeff to direct a production of Spitfire for AFT. And well, let's see Annalise.
Let's see Annalise, and then we'll get to Molly. Molly has a question we'll get to after Annalise.
Okay.
But if you can turn this whole valley to golden and burn till the colors of paradise shine, then maybe you'll rest morning light will uncover an ember of heat in this cold heart of mine. Morning light, shine on me, shine. Find an ember of heat in this
Just stunning.
She was so good. And Mark
So
Mady, forget about it. I can't.
forget.
All right, so now we're going to tell the story about
Yes, please tell the story.
the writing
My
of that, and then we'll
favorite.
get to Molly's question. Yes,
Yeah.
the lighting was by Jason Fassel and was just gorgeous, conveying that sunrise. It was amazing. The whole production was just kind of a gift. It was so beautiful. All right, so writing that song. We had written an earlier piece for that wasn't about a sunrise, but was capturing the same moment of redemption and freedom, and it was called Fly. And it had certain ways that it went, and it was a really good song, and some people have sung it, and I don't sing, so I recite the lyrics for people, and it's a beautiful Fred Alley lyric, but it wasn't right. So Fred was coming up with different things, and I think I have something for you. And he sent me Shine. And Fred would work late into the night, and I would often get up early into the morning. And I was up really early that morning and got on my computer, and Fred had sent this lyric, and I was like, oh my God, I need to get to the piano. But Bob and I lived in a studio apartment at that time in New York. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning or earlier. And the piano was like right next to the bed. There were no rooms. It was a studio. So, you know, I put on headphones and I'm playing, and the song literally just came out like that. And you hear the bells and, you know, all the things that are happening in the orchestration. As I'm playing, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing the whole thing, and I'm hearing this voice singing it, and I'm sobbing. I never sob when I write. I often sob when I hear things sung so beautifully, like she just sang it, but not when I'm writing it necessarily. But this was like an emotional experience. And to top it off, when that climax came, literally, we had a sliver view of the Hudson River, and the sun came up on the other side and started illuminating the Hudson. So literally the sun was rising, and it was like, it's a moment in my life I will never, ever forget. Just thrilling. And I couldn't wait to share it with Bob. And he's upstairs, and he's going to kill me for telling this story. I couldn't wait to share it with Bob. Bob is not a morning person. If he hasn't had like 3 cups of coffee, he just says, go away. That's the extent of his morning charm, right? But this is different. This is transcendent. I have to share this with him. I'm like, Bob, I have the song. I have the song. Unplug the headphones, and, you know, I don't care if the neighbors are asleep. You have to hear this. So, you know, and my no singing rule is, you know, shot to the wind. I'm singing it, you know, I sing the whole thing full out and giving it all I got. I get to the ending, you know, very quiet, and, you know, Bob, what do you think? It's like, well, I guess it'll work in the context of the show. Let me go back to sleep. Yeah, Katie, I think you get more delight out of that than anybody. And Bob gets no delight from my retelling the story. But
I'm sorry, Bob. I asked him please to tell it. I just love it so much.
I could have said no, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's right. James is to blame, not me.
Yeah.
Whew. Oh, that's so great.
Oh,
Okay,
dear.
so now, everyone, the thing about these online shows is you can go anytime you want. So I don't really worry about running over the undetermined time of 1 hour. So I just want you to know that you can feel free to leave, but I hope you stick around, because now we're going to talk about Victory Farm, I think, unless there's more. I mean, there's obviously 1 million more things we could talk about Spitfire. And I wonder if there's anything else you want to say about that.
No, let's move on.
Okay. So in 2011, 2010, when I worked at Door Shakespeare with James, is when we sort of, Emily Colson, my co-writer, and I sort of broached the idea with him that we could maybe, he could maybe be the composer for this show we were writing that at that point was called Cherryland USA. And you already heard that whole story. This show is about German prisoners of war who came to Door County, where James and I both live, to pick cherries during World War II, which really happened in 1945. The story is about a farm run by a widower whose husband has been killed in action, and her widow and her daughter, her teenage daughter. And my family it's still in my family, has a cherry orchard sort of north of Sister Bay, where we kind of envisioned this whole thing playing out. The part we have 2 clips of Victory Farm to watch, and they're from the show, a song called Hand Over Hand, which is sort of like a long montage kind of number in really pretty much the middle of the show. Like it was, I don't think we had even in the indoor version, I don't think we had a intermission, but if you did, it would probably happen after this song. So what do you think we should tell them about this one, James?
Should we talk about it before or after? I think before.
Yeah.
So you know what to listen for. So, it's very weird to talk about myself, Katie, because it just is. I don't like the way it sounds, but I like a good tune as much as anybody and have come out with a few. But I think my real talent is as a storyteller, less a songwriter or even a composer than a musical dramatist. It sounds pretentious, and I don't mean it to. I'm not pretentious, but I think
agree with you, James, by the way.
Thank you. I think that's my best talent, because for me, it's all in the service of who are these characters? Why are they singing this? What happens because they sing this, and how does it turn out? It's telling a story. It's about that. And I've always been interested in that, and I've always loved long musical numbers that took us from one place and time to another. Like, go back to probably the first musical any of us ever saw when we were kids was probably The Wizard of Oz, and that whole Munchkinland scene. That's like a little opera where there's some lines of dialogue, but they're basically singing everything, and that whole scene, 10 or 15 minutes of music. The scene I mean, and then the Merry Old Land of Oz, where they go through their transformations and get scrubbed up after their arduous sojourn, and are looking all spiffy again and ready to meet the wizard. That a whole thing happens during the course of an extended musical number that's really telling the story, and is a delightful song with a great hook to boot. And now's the part where it gets really pretentious, because really, I always talk about Verdi, but he really is my inspiration for this. And it was after Spitfire, after Fred passed and I wasn't writing, and that I had a lot of time on my hands where I didn't know what to do with myself creatively. I read this 3-volume, it's not a biography of Verdi, but it's a critical analysis in great detail of his works, and not just what they are, but literally how they came to be, because he was a voracious letter writer and collaborated with his collaborators via letters that still exist. And in Verdi, the guy could write a great tune, and he could write a hook. He would take think of La Donna Immobile, that's the entire song. Da 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 da. It's the whole song. So he gets this hook. You always remember that tune, because even when the notes change a little bit, it's the same phrase. You cannot forget it. It's a great tune. So he had that, but the dramatist part, that he could write these extended scenes. They're usually in the finale of an act, and it's at a heightened moment dramatically when the heroine is contemplating some sort of sacrifice. The hero knows he needs to go into battle with the baritone, and the mezzo is a gypsy who needs to make sure the spell works. You know, and the bass is the father and is very concerned, and there's a chorus of priests over here, and there's these, you know, gypsies over here, and they're all singing something different. The words are all different, but you get what's going on. And the music, the soprano, you know, might be going boop, 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 and the bass has a la da da, you know, and it's all in one. But they're not just singing a chorus. Every part is different, but they're all in a line. All these stories are being told at once. Fascinating. I love that shit. Oh, I love that stuff. Anyway, and I'd always loved it, but it wasn't until I read these books that I discovered, because Jeff Herbst sometimes called me a bully, that I was too demanding of lyricists and book writers, and that I was always telling them what to do. And I don't consider myself a Verdi, but I feel a lot of affinity with him in the way he tells the story and what his particular gifts are. Mine are on his level, but they're of similar stripe. They're similar gifts in my own way, in my own meager way, MEAGRE. Anyway, so
it's the most pretentious way to spell that word.
I know, totally. So the salient thing that I read is that he would literally dictate to his librettists what to write, not the words, but how many lines it is, how long the lines are, how many syllables, where the climax of this line is going to be. So the vowel better be an ah or an o, so that we can have a long held out note for the soprano and the tenor. I mean, detailed to structure these scenes. It wasn't an accident that they gave him some words that were lovely and that he could turn it into this thing that works as a scene. It's called a scena in opera. That means scene. It's a scene. It was not by accident. So no matter how talented the wordsmith, he would tell them what he needed to make the scene work. And whether it's an opera or a musical, the musical is what makes it go, or should be. And it shouldn't be something that makes it stop. And sometimes it sort of does. So anyway, I think that this hand over hand is a really good example of that Verdi technique. There's only a little bit of it where everyone's singing something different. But in a musical, I think the audience's tolerance for that kind of stunt is a little less than in the opera house. So you have to do it judiciously. And there's several moments like that in Spitfire, but I wanted to do something that we had done together. And I don't know that I was quite as demanding as Verdi, but I do remember talking very carefully about length and structure of these various sections and how it was going to fit together. And because I frustratingly would never sing for you guys, and you had to hear this like clarinet MIDI version, thank you and Emily for going with it and being able to sort of, you know, read the hieroglyphs and figure out what it could be, and that there was a reason why I was asking for such specific stuff. But this is the 21st century musical theater example of an application of Verdi's technique.
Which is why we know you all tuned in tonight. You were looking for that
You
very
know
thing.
it. Your prayers have been answered.
So we're gonna play a short clip of the beginning of the song. The way the song works is that it goes from person to person. It's a montage. And so we're going to play the beginning. The whole thing is 10 minutes. We're not going to play the whole thing. We're going to play the beginning and we're going to play the end. So here is the beginning. The show has 6 characters. 3 of them are POWs. One of them's a guard. And then it's the mother and daughter. Yay.
Up and at 'em! Another morning, another day. Back in the orchard, I thought I was done with seeing these old cherries, seeing that old bay. Sitting in the same old summer sun. Hand over hand, take the fruit of the land. Work as long as the harvest season lingers. Work for home, work for pride. Work until the day has died. Work while summer falls like water through your fingers. Over there.
At night there is music, in the morning the sun. Und so many Kirchen, 100 hails are done. And we are here together, me and these friends. So much I will miss them when this harvest ends. And I am not home, and I am not free, but the songs in the kitchen are enough for now for me.
Working all the day and night, picking all the fruit in sight. Hand over hand.
Yay.
Oh,
So there's
Dan
the
was so
beginning.
sweet in that
Oh,
part.
I know. Dan's so sweet. Should we watch the end? We don't need to tell them any. I mean, some things happen, and
Some things,
yeah,
lots of things happen.
lots of things happen. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
And this?
Hand over hand, working all the day and night, picking all the fruit inside. Working all the day and night, all the day and night, all the fruit inside. All the fruit. I see how you watch her and how you draw near. Have you forgotten why we are here? I just want to go back. I just want to be done. I just want to wake up in that bright German sun. Keep your mind on your home, keep your eyes on the tree. Keep your back to the girl, keep on working till we're free. Working all the day and night, picking all the fruit inside. Working all the day and night, all the day and night, the fruit inside, the fruit
Daddy, roll those pants down. This isn't the beach, for heaven's sake.
But it's hot out here.
Dorothy May Hoffman, you will listen to me.
Mother, please, you treat me like I'm 5 years old.
You will listen to me as long as you live under my roof.
There's something I want to show you.
hand over hand over hand over hand. Summer falls like water through your fingers.
Teachers come. A full scholarship.
I want to go, Mother. Classes start September 15th.
You're not old enough to go to Milwaukee by yourself.
If I was a boy, I could be fighting in Europe by now.
You're not a boy, and I need you here. You and I are keeping on. You and I are keeping on. Getting by now, you and me.
Keep your mind on your home, keep your eyes on your keep your back to another morning, another day. Here in this old town of fields and farms, sun shines down on all those cherries, shines on that big bay. I filled another bucket, I can feel it in my arms. Working all the day and night, picking all the fruit inside.
Working all the day and night,
All the day inside the fruit, hand over hand, take the fruit of the land. Work as long as the harvest season lingers. Work for home, work for pride, work until the day has died. Work while summer falls like water through your fingers. Hand over hand over hand over hand over hand over hand.
Yay!
That lyric, work while summer falls like water through your fingers. Every time I hear it, that makes me weep. I don't know which one of you dames wrote it, you or Emily, but talk about wise beyond your years. That's life. That's summer. That's every season going by. And it's just so beautiful. And it was a joy to write that music. Thank you for including me in the project.
A joy to, I mean, what a joy. It really is an amazing, alchemical process to go from words to that, and to have that happen between, I experience that some often within myself, like I write the lyrics and the music all at the same time, but it's so much different to have the magic happen, between two people. So
I know. I just learned something.
What?
That was all Katie Dahl.
Oh, that was all Katie
Oh.
Dahl. Emily, very generous. Um, we should say, we should credit Molly
should
Rohde,
say we
Allie
gotta go.
Babbage. Yeah, well, we'll say that soon. Molly Rohde, Allie Babbage, Chad Luberger, Dan Clarer, Steve Kaler, and Doug Manchesky were the actors of that. The show was directed by John Hagee. I should know all these credits, but they're all on the CD, which you can purchase at katiedahlmusic.com
Yes.
/store. And you can you can listen to the Spitfire Grill on Spotify, because I live in this 21st century. And though James doesn't always, I did help pull the Spitfire Grill, which I have, you may be envious, in hard copy, into that century by helping James get up on Spotify last year. So if you haven't checked for a while.
She did it.
I did it. It's true.
She did it.
So yes, there's more where that came from. I would talk to you forever. Clearly, we do have a walk and talk scheduled on Friday, so we can. We don't have to keep all these people here. Yes, no,
Because
go on.
TV Land, we are contemplating not just one, but actually a couple of projects to be looking at in the near future to work on together. I'm glad Katie's new composer didn't completely phase me out, because her new composer, Katie Dahl, is pretty swell.
Well.
But I look forward. But there's something different, right, Katie? I've worked by myself too, and it's fine, and there are rewards. But collaboration, when it works, is just it's magical. There's an alchemy that happens, and I know Emily says that was all Katie Dahl, but your reaction, Katie, was like, I wouldn't have written it even if I did write it, I wouldn't have written it if you weren't writing the show with me, Emily. And that's how it is when you're collaborating.
Yes, that's exactly
everyone's
right.
responsible for everything because you inspire each other, and that's the best. That's the best way to work.
Yeah.
So let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Let's hang up this show because we got some shows to write.
That's right. Thanks, everyone. I'm not going to do a closing song because the Hand Over Hand was a closing song, but there is the theme song closer, Lacrissa Granberry and Ava Nimmer.
Yay.
And yay. So we'll leave you with this. And bye, James. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thanks for asking me.
My pleasure. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, I hope. Okay, bye.
Katie Dahl.
Katie Dahl has friends.
Katie Dahl has friends.
Yeah.